Dave and I are up in the Okanagan, and the spot that I'm sitting on right now is actually the origin point of all the horseflies in the known universe. So I've slathered myself with bug repellent, which I really don't like, but what are you gonna do? Also, the little cabin that we're at, the outhouse, has a nest with baby bird eggs in it, and Dave is so tender-hearted that he's right now making me a chair over a bucket so we don't have to disturb the mother bird sitting on her eggs. Oh, that man. Anyway, I really do have a list of, I don't know, 50 stories that I could tell you, and every time I think I've exhausted my list, I think of 4 or 5 others, so I could go on and on, but the problem is I never know which one to do. And yesterday I got a really sweet message from a girl I've known for a long time, since she was a teenager, and what she said was that it was just what she needed when she needed it. I'm not sure which one of the ones that I had posted that she was talking about, but what she said was, God knows the situation I'm in. And that just right there triggered the one for today, because this, if nothing else, will ever convince you that God is watching all the time and knows your exact situation and what you need and what you're going through. This one should do it. So many years back, when I started waking up in the middle of the night a lot, like, I don't know, 6 nights a week, it dawned on me that God is in control, like I said, in my breath and my heartbeat, so he can control my sleep. And I know he's not a cruel trickster, so I knew he wasn't just for fun letting me wake up in the middle of the night. And I said, Lord, all I can surmise is that maybe we haven't had enough you and me time today, and so I'm just going to take you up on it, and if I wake up in the middle of the night, I'll go out in the living room and I will have a quiet time. Actually, before this, when I originally said it, we were living in a little tiny, I don't know, 24-foot camper with our son and daughter, and we were building a house right on our property. So I would have to climb over Dave in order to get out of bed and get my Bible and have a quiet time. And I had taken to leaving some pieces of foil right near the lamp so that I could put it all around the lamp and just have the light shine down on my Bible. So it was kind of a little bit of an ordeal, but I just really felt like if God wanted me to sleep, he'd let me sleep. So then we did move into our house, and one night I woke up and thought, okay, Lord, I'm going out to the living room. And I didn't know where I was going to read. I hadn't even opened my Bible yet. I was just at that point where I was unzipping it, and I felt this urgency to speak out loud this verse that I know. And I'd never felt an urgency to speak a verse out loud unless I was teaching or something. But it was, I just said quietly, when the enemy comes in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord will lift up a standard against him. I love that verse out of Isaiah. And I thought, oh, that's beautiful. And then I, again, had this direction to say it again out loud. And so I said, when the enemy comes in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord will lift up a standard against him. And I had gotten up at 2:30, and this went on for 1 hour. From 2:30 to 3:30, all I did was say that verse. When the enemy comes in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord will lift up a standard against him. And I had no idea what it was about or who it was for or why the Holy Spirit just seemed to want me to say this verse, which is kind of an obscure verse actually in Isaiah, and only one of the translations says it exactly that way. But for whatever reason, I was riveted. I was completely stuck on the couch with my Bible sitting next to me. I hadn't opened it, and for 1 hour, from 2:30 to 3:30, I said that verse over and over and over. And at 2:30, something just broke, and I thought, okay, I can go back to bed. And I knew when I did that I was going to fall right asleep, which is exactly what happened. My head hit the pillow and I was out. So the next morning, I got a call from a friend, and she had moved quite a distance away, so I didn't see her. And we talked maybe every 6 months or so, but not on a regular basis. And so we're chatting away and kind of catching up, and I yawned in the middle of it. And she said, am I boring you? You know, because she's that kind of friend. We can talk to each other like that. And I said, no. I said, I just had the weirdest night. So I told her exactly what happened, that from 2:30 to 3:30, I was given instructions to just say this verse over and over and over. And when I was done, there was this long silence, and with a voice that I could tell she was starting to cry, she said, "You were up praying for me," which was startling. And she explained that she had been up from 2 o'clock in her bathroom on the floor, just weeping and sobbing for regret that she felt over something that had happened. And she said she just was overwhelmed with it, that this horrible shame and guilt and just horror had washed over her. And so she said that she was on that position on the floor crying from 2 o'clock until 3:30. And she said at 3:30, suddenly it was over. And she got up and dried her face off and went back to bed and fell right asleep. So it was not until, I don't know, 6 months later or maybe a year later when I actually got to see her that she confessed to me what had happened. And she's a strong believer, but she got caught in a situation, and someone that she was around a lot was kind of putting the moves on her, and they ended up having a one-night affair. And she was horrified, of course, and just so convicted. And she did talk to her husband about it, and he loves her and forgave her. But that night, she hadn't told anyone yet. And, you know, you can just imagine the guilt and the shame and the regret. We all have things like that in our life that we feel and that can overwhelm us and come in like a flood when we are really, truly convicted of them. After I found out what it was all about, I thought again, as I have so many times, how beautiful the Lord is, because he knew what had happened. And rather than being a father that has a hammer in his hand, you know, and is disciplining you, he nudged me awake and told me what to do to pray for her. And that's how much he loves her. And so I love that, because there were two things mainly out of it. One was that look how gracious and gentle and kind the Lord is to come alongside us when we're filled with grief or remorse and pick us up and hold us and dust us off and set us on our way again. How quick he is to forgive when we are truly repentant. But then the other thing was that he didn't need me to do that. It's not like God was at my mercy, and if I had said, no, I'm going to try to stay in bed, I'm not getting up, that, you know, he would have wrung his hands because, oh, this can't happen, you know. He doesn't need me or you or anyone. But I always think it's kind of like when my husband was mowing the lawn. He's coming around the corner with his fingers in his ears so that he doesn't hear me. But when he would mow the lawn, our son had a little plastic mower, and he loved to mow behind Dad. And of course, Zach was not mowing the lawn with his little plastic mower. Dave was mowing the lawn. But it just delighted Zach to feel that he was working with his dad and that, look, I'm doing it. Well, we're just kids to the Lord. And as I said, he doesn't need us. But when you look up and you realize that God has invited us to put our two little hands on the plow right in between his and walk the field with him. He invites us to do the work with him. And it's just a beautiful thing that, you know, I don't understand how people can think that God spun the world into being, you know, just with a word, which is what we're told that he did. And then he just, you know, dusted his hands off and went off and didn't pay any attention to us again. Nothing could be further from the truth. To know that his eyes never leave us, not for a second, and that he wants to have that interaction with us. He wants us to look up and talk to him as we would to our Father, and ask him for things and talk to him about things that are bothering us, and he wants us to work with him. So you never know when you're being prompted to pray for someone. If you have those situations where someone comes to your mind a lot, just stop what you're doing and pray and ask God to be present and to reveal himself to that person and to direct them to the best path, to the right path. And for those of you that are in tough situations, like my friend had said, that she was just so grateful to be reminded that God knows her situation. This is a message for any of you that are in a tough situation, because he knows every bit of it. He saw it coming. sees around your corners. That's what I always come back to. And it would be so easy for us to think that God was disappointed with us and angry at us and that we had done it this time. We've done the sin that is the one that has broken everything, and he just can't even look at us anymore because she's back to doing that again, or she knows better than to do this or that. But he never looks at us that way. And like I said, if you're truly repentant and you go to God with that, he meets you in your night of weeping. He really does. He's close to the brokenhearted, and repentance and humility attract grace. So God never turns his eye away from you when you're in that position. God is right there, ready to forgive and ready to put his arms around you. And so whatever you're in, know that God knows every bit of it. And he knew you were going to do that thing, whatever it is, if you're caught up in a sin, or if you have just made bad choices and you know that those aren't the things that you should have done. Think of it this way. God chose you when he knew that day was coming. He knew my friend was going to make that choice, and yet he still called her and has used her in mighty ways. And so if he saw all of that and still chose us, what could we possibly do now that we belong to him that could push him away from us? There's nothing. Every bit of the wrath that we really deserve and that should come our way has all been poured out on Jesus. And that's what happened on the cross, which is why we can come boldly into the throne room. His mercies are new every morning. We get to walk in that because of Jesus. I hope that encourages you. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.